Happy Monday, everybody. I hope that you had a wonderful weekend and a great Mother's Day. I know Mother's Day can sometimes be hard for people if your mother is no longer around, or if that's just, life isn't easy sometimes, but I hope it was a beautiful day. I have thought of this topic for quite some time. The way that I develop a podcast topic is something will, kind of click to me, and then I literally keep my notes in my phone, and all different times through the day or through a period of time, I will find kind of a topic emerge, and experiences will happen, and I'm constantly writing notes to myself, and sometimes I like to write them in my phone if I'm on the fly, if I'm running around. Otherwise, if you look at my desk, I have multiple notebooks and journals. And of course, my favorite, maybe someday, hey Papa, maybe this can be our sponsor one day. I love a flare pen. Those who know me and love me know how much I love a flare pen. Anyway, this topic has unfolded and evolved, but really a lot as I've worked on the book, because I realize how literally Jeff and I live in two different worlds. And we have for the entirety of our relationship, but it really evolved as we were really active in two things. We live in Middle America. Sometimes I think that's confusing to people, but it works for us. We love St. Louis. It's been a really good place to be based. And because we're very central, and we are the gateway after all, it's easy for us to travel the Midwest. It's easy to go scout the South. So as far as just the scouting aspect of what we do, we love it. We love that we are in kind of these varied worlds. Up until 2.5 years ago, we lived in the suburbs of St. Louis in a community called Darting Prairie, and literally, then it really felt like two different worlds. I have vivid recollection of being in Paris for Fashion Week and flying home when the kids were still in high school, and that was, we were in that mode. I remember once we literally went from the airport to, we were going to a football game that our sons were playing in on a Friday night, and we had to stop at the Walmart because, yes, there was a Walmart not far from the kids' high school. And there's no more glaring reality that you live in two different worlds of going from Paris to Walmart and going. I remember we were laughing going, most of the people in here, as we were running, I don't know what we had to get. We were stopping to get something specific. And I remember thinking, none of these people, or the vast majority, 99%, don't even know about Paris Fashion Week or could care less. And in some ways, I think that that's been really good. That being in these two different worlds gives us a clarity and a perspective that I'm really grateful for. And also scouting Midwest, the rural areas, the smaller cities of the Midwest, and then we fell in love with scouting the South. We love Louisville, Kentucky. We love to go through Nashville and Memphis, and we have fallen in love with the Gulf Shores and Birmingham, and it's become, and they're very culturally different. And the irony of it too is that we're looking for people in those areas to then bring into New York, LA, Europe, and all the other global fashion markets of the world. And it's a really interesting perspective. And I hate the word juxtaposition. There, I said it. I've literally had lengthy conversations. I actually became friends with somebody, Dawn Sturman, if you're out there, I bet you remember this conversation. our friendship was founded originally is because I was on some rant about how much I hate the word juxtaposition. A lot of that was so many people would come to us, which is an advantage, and I'm thankful for it, who would write about what we do, where we've had the honor of having some great reporters tell our story, and they love to use the word juxtaposition because we were, in Middle America and yet really connected to the fashion world. And so the other interesting thing about that is that it leaves Jeff and myself kind of like feeling like we don't really 100% fit in either place. And that's a whole other interesting part of our life. I don't like judgments. I don't like generalizations. I have always been, that's something that really riles me up because I don't think it's fair. But that being said, I started to write notes, and I remember actually being at a fashion show backstage and then coming out, and we were kind of, our role is we'll be there, we'll be backstage with whatever model we happen to be with, and then as it gets time for the show to start, we know our cue now. We've been doing this for over 12 years consistently, that okay, this is our cue to go out and stand and wait because they're in the final phase of filling the seats and the show will be starting shortly. They've called first looks backstage. This is our time to move and find our position. And I was just in this mental place. I think there was stuff going on back home, and I remember just watching everybody filter in, and I felt sad about it. I felt it was towards the end of Fashion Week, and you're tired, and it starts to feel a little Groundhog Day-like, and it also, when big things are happening in your life, and then something that, for whatever reason, feels a little superficial, you just find yourself in this weird position. And I wrote in my phone, the people in the middle of America are not what you think, and the people on the coast aren't either. Sometimes people in the middle will say, oh, I don't know, I'm those crazy New Yorkers, or I can't identify with them, or they live a fast life, or they'll make assumptions about those people. And then the people that are in the major metropolitan world and maybe in entertainment or fashion, sometimes on the other side, can diminish the value of how special the people in the middle are, and how they're creative and artistic and interesting. It doesn't matter. Geography has never meant anything to me. Because in today's world, really you can get any place relatively quickly. And now, because of the reality of walking around with phones that keep us connected to everywhere, the world became even smaller. But I feel so thankful that we can identify with and respect and see value in our friends in New York that are unique and diverse and interesting, and our friends in Europe that you just love them for who they are, and by that same token can come back and be in Iowa and just appreciate the acknowledgement and the hi, how are you, and the opening of the doors, and when you go down south, the polite way. My point is, we all have something we can learn from each other. We're not that different. And in a day and a time where things are so divisive, I hate it because it starts to make people make generalizations, and they gloss over the reality of that we have so much to learn from each other. And our differences are actually what makes it so beautiful. I'm a huge Whoopi Goldberg fan. I have been forever, but I have religiously watched The View for all. We started dating when The View came on. I think it was 22 years, because we've been dating 22 years. And once I had a DVR, even if I didn't have the ability to watch it, I record it. I also have realized that I think I have a PhD equivalency in talk show. I know talk show. I'm passionate about talk shows. I could watch them all day. They're so interesting. But what I love about Whoopi is, years ago she said, look, I have friends from all different walks of life. We don't have to agree politically. We don't have to agree religious in the reality of what our faith is. I respect you. I want to learn from you. And I think that's a dying thing. And we feel the same way. We have such diverse groups of people that are friends, and they mean so much to us. And I don't like seeing people diminish each other because of those differences. Here's a note that I wrote to myself at one point. There are times I wish I could step aside and speak to the fashion people and say it's not all about your bag and shoes. And at the same time, tell the moms in the Midwest to have fun with fashion and keep rediscovering yourself. It's just balance. It's what really matters, and that fashion can be fun, and it should be something that evolves, just like how you evolve. In my 30s, I have such a vivid recollection of this. I met a woman, this was so early on, I really had no clue what I was doing. But I was living in Iowa, the kids were little. In the very beginning, I would go to a modeling convention, which I have very strong opinions about, but that is a whole other topic. But I went to it was an agency, kind of a VIP thing, where all these agents were there, and the mother agents and people that had brought in models. It was like a cocktail party type thing. And I met a woman, her name was Dottie. I can't remember her last name to save my life, but she had a significant impact on how I viewed things, because I sat and I was chatting with her for quite a while, and I was like, this woman's so cool. I was in a beige colored Casual Corner outfit, because I also worked part-time at Casual Corner at the time. I was always good for having I could always hustle. I always had a few gigs, and I remember being fascinated with the fact that this woman was turning 50. It was her 50th birthday that just happened to be happening at this cocktail party. And she felt young and excited, and just everything. To me, it was like seeing something that I didn't see a lot where I came from. I saw this very fashionable, fun, young woman who was 50. And to me, it had a huge impact that that's who I want to be. As we travel and we scout, we realize that there's kind of this regional fashion thing that happens. Like the observation really started to happen once we moved to St. Louis, and we would go back to scout in Iowa. And at the time, the bedazzling jeans were still really big in Iowa, but you didn't see that in St. Louis anymore. And I was like, it's kind of this regional geographical fashion thing. And then at the same time, we started scouting in the South. This was in early Taylor Swift days. And I remember we were in someplace in Kentucky, Louisville, and then I think we also scouted Lexington at the same time. And I remember going, wow, 80% of the girls that were at this concert had a part on this side of their hair where the swoop bang would come over, because in that area, that's what was cool, and that's what Taylor Swift was doing, and so that's what everybody else was doing. And I think in today's world, what can be really exciting, I'm thankful that we get to travel, and I see how people's fashion is different around the world, and in Europe, and in New York, and it excites me that I get to experience both. And I think it would be so great for more people to value the difference and be inspired by people that aren't like them. Because it's cool, it's how you learn. It's the difference between when we first moved here and they would say, oh, the city people and the county people are separated, and that never made sense to me. You want to stay current. You don't want to feel stuck. So there's this evolution within yourself of being inspired by people that aren't like you. Can't we just have it be more like that? That you're inspired by people from different places who do different things, and that they open up a whole new world to you. I guess the bottom line for me is talking about the reality that we're not that different, everyone, and that we all have things to learn from each other. And lastly, I wrote this note. It was something that was on television that really kind of clicked it for me, and I like it because it comes back to that thing of putting people in a category. And they said there's nothing that could ever put her in a category, a person. And I think it'd be great for us to all to aspire to not be in a category, to be open to experience, to be open to aspirations, and to see that we have a lot to learn from each other, and that living in different worlds can be really great because it opens your eye and it expands it. And even if you aren't in a position like we are where we get to travel and experience that, even step outside the circles in your life and plug into some other new circles. I think you'd be amazed what you would learn. I hope this is encouraging and inspiring to you, and I will talk to you next Monday.